Just before we move on, I want to just touch on that for a second because I know you're familiar with that, Byron. The number 22 is associated with our military veterans. Can you tell us what that number represents?
Yeah, so, there was a study that went out a few years ago, and it was that roughly 22 veterans are committing suicide every single day, one every couple of hours. That's the short answer of it without me going on a rant.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand,
that's the
brother.
real war that's going on.
I understand. And we have suicide rates in retired law enforcement as well.
Oh, yeah.
But nothing near
Really?
the military rate is. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. We're in January 2025. And I gave you some guys some teasers at the end of the year about some of the studs and studettes that I plan to bring on this year. And today is one of them, just like last week was, and just like next week's going to be, and like the whole freaking year is going to be. I told him, we've been talking to you just for a few minutes before we got started. I've got goosebumps talking to this guy, and we really haven't even gotten into the stories yet. So hope you all had a very, very Merry Christmas. Pray for the year 2025 to be safe, healthy, and prosperous for all of us. And thank you very much for continuing to support me here on Game of Crimes. Tell your friends about it. Tell them to come on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button for me. Finally got it over 1,000 subscribers last year. So trying to show Morgan I can run this show without him. And let me tell you, it's tough. It's very tough. He sent me some items over Christmas. And for our guest today, that was my original co-host on the show who had to leave for his day job about 6 months ago. Left Murph hanging, brother. But the listeners have been loyal. I just can't say thank you enough. I know it gets redundant, but I hope you never take it for granted. So today's guest, you can see a young man sitting right there. He's all covered up, so you can't see. He looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody. I mean, this guy, I think I'll put the jacket on or something because my arms are so small. His arms look like my legs. And today's guest is Byron Rogers. Byron, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Hey, Murph, it's an honor. It's a privilege. Good to see you again. And I'm just looking forward to contributing and seeing where the conversation goes.
Well, I'm going to do my best to get you to come out of your shell today. And for you listeners, you'll recognize the significance of that lame statement here after we get going. But just want to tell you real quickly a little bit about Byron. He's a former U.S. Marine. Of course, he is. Combat veteran. Came out of the Corps as a squad leader. Had 2 deployments in Iraq. We're going to talk about that. Got blown up a few times. I think you spent a total of 4 years in the Corps. Is that right?
Yes, sir. 4 years.
And what we're going to talk about today is not just about what happened to him in Iraq. This is going to be, he's going to tell us stories which all relate to resilience, perseverance, survival, never giving up, being motivated. This last one I really like, adapting to your circumstances and making those circumstances work for you. I mean, think about what this guy did. Not just Byron, but all of our military veterans that come back from a war zone. What were they taught when they went in the military? They were taught how to protect themselves, how to protect others, and how to kill people in a war. That's the honest to God's truth right there. It's as basic as I can make it. And so then when they get out of the military and they come back to civilian life, and he's going to tell us about his term for civilian life. I love it. I'm going to let him tell you that. But how many jobs have you seen advertised where an employer wants somebody with those qualifications? You don't see them anywhere. Now, what I do see from employers, and I would be the same way if I was more than a one-man company, I would want veterans working for me because I know that they know about discipline, they know about dedication, they know about focusing on a mission, they know how to complete the mission regardless of the odds. They don't whine, they don't complain, they get the job done, and they keep rolling. And I just respect the hell out of them for all that they do. So it's just, to be redundant, Byron, it's just such an honor to have you on here, brother. I'm a fangirl over you the whole next, this episode and tomorrow's episode. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate you. It's an honor, Murph.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
As all our listeners know, we have a weekly funny session that we call the Small Town Police Blotters. And before we get into that, I just got to read our disclaimer here. This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. Now, I take these stories very seriously, but it never hurts to have a little laugh. And if it's at the expense of a criminal, Well, you're going to see what the cops have to put up with, the kind of crap they have. I surprised Byron with this morning. I sent him an email with the story. He's out in California. I'm in Orlando. So Byron, he's going to read us a couple of short stories out of California. And then, of course, where mine's coming from because we have no shortage of dumb criminals here in Florida. So, brother, I'm going to turn it over to you, Byron. What you got?
Awesome. Okay, this is what I got, Murph. The Bay Area is the epicenter of weird, so it comes as no real surprise that our crime is just a little wackier too. Now we don't hold the candle to Florida crime. That's true, but the Bay Area weird crime has a slightly different flavor to it, which is definitely true. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the 33 people crashing their cars in the exact same way for the exact same reason doesn't exactly add up. A CHP officer came to this realization in San Jose when 33 accidents in Santa Clara County were blamed on coffee spills. The coffee breaking had a formula for success, and they stuck with it. One suspect would crash their car into another conspirator, then blame the accident on a lapse of focus caused by a spilled cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance companies were paying the full salvage value for the wrecked vehicles, which fakers would then turn around and crash again. CHP estimates 110 or more false claims were made, totaling over $2 million in payouts and untold sacrifice cups of Starbucks.
Wow.
Tragedy.
Wait, I always thought insurance companies had databases that track and have algorithms that look for trends like that, but
Right.
I guess they didn't in the Bay Area. Huh?
They're usually pretty amazing at not paying whatever it is. So I'm kind of, at least somebody got some money out of them. God bless them.
True.
At any rate.
True.
In another story, when they woke up Eddie Malden III from being unconscious on a train to SFO, he told them he had a perfectly good explanation for the 12 baggies of cocaine on his person. He liked to sprinkle it on his marijuana. So, it's a perfectly good explanation. It all makes sense to somebody. It all began about 1:45 a.m. when Malden was found passed out on a BART train as it reached its last destination in San Francisco International Airport. The train operator tried to wake him unsuccessfully and called BART police. Officers responded and discovered that Malden was holding a bag with 12 individually wrapped baggies of powdered cocaine. He also had $294 on him, authorities said. Paramedics had to use an ammonia inhalation device to wake him up. Prosecutors were less than impressed by his reason, especially in light of his previous convictions for selling drugs. However, it was a much more creative explanation than "those aren't mine," so at least it was entertaining for them. He just liked to put it on top of his marijuana. What's up?
I got to tell you, I've heard a lot of stories over the years. I never heard anybody say that one.
Yeah, no. Sorry for my reading. It's always been I got that dyslexia, so
not a problem,
for whatever it's worth. There's no excuses.
Here. No
Absolutely.
Listen, you served your country. There's no higher calling than serving your fellow man. So whatever it is, you can get away with it here, man.
Good to go.
It's just crazy, though. I guess he had the $294 so he could make change for people that wanted to buy the little, well, he wasn't selling them. Everybody carries around 12 bags of cocaine, right?
Yeah, no. And it's totally reasonable. He just likes to sprinkle it on top of his blunts. That's all.
Yeah. Somewhere in his mind, that made sense.
Yeah, at least he had a sense of humor about it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's head on down to Florida and find out what idiot we're going to talk about today. Oh, this one just happened. So, I mean, this one just happened on December 26th. So you may have seen this in the news because it was all over the news here in Central Florida. And I'm in Orlando, but I'm really close to the Osceola County line. And this happened in Kissimmee, which is just hop, skip, and the jump down the road here.
Huh.
So this is the way the article goes. Angry that she only received a $2 tip on a $33.10 order of pizza and chicken wings, a delivery driver allegedly checked out of work and returned later that night to stab the female customer 14 times, according to Florida investigators. The cops say that Brianna Alvelo, 22 years old, was working Sunday evening at Marco's Pizza. Well, you've eaten at Marco's Pizza, not the one in Kissimmee, but it's a business in Kissimmee when she was dispatched around 10 p.m. to the nearby Riviera Motel to deliver food ordered by Melinda Irizarry, who was 26 years old. Irizarry, her boyfriend Bobby Brooks, and the couple's 5-year-old daughter were celebrating Brooks' birthday. Okay. As alleged in an arrest affidavit, when Irizarry handed over $50 for the food, Avilo began walking away with the money, but Melinda had to stop and ask her for a change. Irizarry told cops she didn't want to leave such a large tip, and I don't blame her. After rooting around the smaller bills, Irizarry and Brooks tipped Alvilo $2. Well, that is a little cheesy, but not stabbing cheesy.
Not stabbing 14 times, cheesy.
Melinda explained the female rolled her eyes and walked away without saying anything. Police charged that Alvilo and a male accomplice, both dressed in black and wearing face masks, showed up at the motel 90 minutes after the food delivery. Upon hearing loud knocking, Irizarry opened the door and the two visitors burst in. The male intruder brandished a gun. Well, that would kind of cause you to hold up just a second, wouldn't it? While the woman, who cops later identified as Alvilo, began rummaging through Irizarry's purse and the family's belongings, and now this is what pissed me off, even smashed the child's Nintendo Switch. That's
Come
not a
on,
cheap toy.
man. Like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that, you know?
And it was Christmas. It was a Christmas gift, probably from Santa Claus.
That is uncalled for.
That's right. When Alvilo pulled out a knife, Irizarry turned away to shield her daughter. That's very honorable. This is when Alvilo allegedly began striking Irizarry multiple times with a knife. Cops reported that it was discovered Melinda was stabbed 14 times in different areas of her body, and had just found out from the hospital that she was a few weeks pregnant. So Irizarry was hospitalized in stable condition. A brief police probe identified Alvilo as a suspect in the attack, with investigators stating that she became upset about the tip she had received. Alvilo was arrested Monday and charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, kidnapping, and home invasion with a firearm. Her male companion has not been identified, but they'll get that little jerk here eventually, and she is locked up down in the Osceola County Jail.
Wow.
What?
Over a tip. 14 times. Like, this was horrible. Like, it's evil.
And this girl is 22 years old, and now she's going to go to prison for quite a long time. You think the jury is going to have any sympathy for a woman who's protecting her 5-year-old daughter, and she's recently found out she's pregnant? Oh, my goodness.
Horrible.
Well, hey, Byron, you don't know, well, you may know a little bit about me, but I always talk to people about you can choose to be a leader or a follower. In Florida, we're the leader in stupid criminal stories. That makes everybody else jealous.
Have you ever, I'm sure you've done this. Last time I was in Florida with a client, someone told me, you've got to Google, what was it?
Florida Man.
Yeah.
Florida Man.
It was like Florida Man. And we sat there for probably an hour. And it was 100% awesome every time we Googled, like, someone's birthday, Florida Man. Anything Florida Man. Florida Man. It was, that's a T-shirt, man. 100% accurately, just faithful. It was hilarious. We died laughing a million times.
It is, and everybody knows about Florida Man. I mean, I've got a section on my Patreon channel. It's about stupid criminal stories, and it doesn't matter what state I go to or what country. Everybody recognizes Florida Man.
Florida Man, he's getting it done. I mean, just things you could never think of, just in there. It was great. Yeah,
you're not kidding. All right. Well, thank you for playing along there, man. I really appreciate that. I'd like to start the show with a little levity here because we talk about so many serious things on here, and today's no different. Just very quickly, I want to tell our listeners how Byron, I'm sorry, why not call you Brian?
Yeah.
maybe I'll call you Mr. Rogers. I don't know if that's even worse than Mr. Rogers on
Yeah,
TV. Remember
I'm
him?
pretty durable. Oh yeah, I remember Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers. With all the like stuff on nowadays, I'm about to just make my kids watch some good old Mr. Rogers. I don't know if it's true. I heard he may have been a sniper in the Marine Corps. Mr. Rogers may have been one of the real ones.
Well, you know who we can ask is we can reach out to JT Taylor. I bet you he'll know. You know
He
JT,
might
we
know.
met him at
Okay.
last year at the weekend up in Buford.
At the yeah. At the you got the shirt on right now.
I know. The core medical group.
Veteran
I was there.
Appreciation Weekend.
And our regular listeners have heard me talk about this several times over the past year.
Wow.
Went up to Buford, South Carolina. Sid Gordon owns the company, Core Medical Group. It's a company that they'll check your hormones and your testosterone and the different things in your body that make you feel not 100%. And he's got, in fact, you're one of his ambassadors, aren't you?
Yep.
So we got some other guys in there, some who have been on the show. We got Cody Alfred's going to be on soon. I've already had Lou Velozzi on, had Jason Redmond, had Nick Kumalatzos. I can finally say his name. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I finally can say his name.
Pretty close.
So, and that's where I met Byron last year. And I'm watching this guy, and I'm not kidding you. I was just in awe of almost everybody I saw there. And I'm wondering, why did Sid bring a retired cop up here with all of these heroes? Our listeners have heard me say before, I've never been in a place where I saw that many service dogs. I mean, it was just an honor. It was just a true honor. And then I got to speak to everybody.
Yeah,
which is
you're one of them, you know.
Well,
you've gone before us.
It truly was an honor. So, and the reason I'm making a little bit of a big deal out of this is because that was the third annual Military Appreciation Weekend. And in February of this year, the fourth annual Military Appreciation Weekend is coming. It'll be February 28th to March 3rd. This is in Buford, South Carolina. Sid has everybody over to his house. It's a beautiful house. It's got magnificent waterways behind it. It's like something you see in a vacation magazine is what it looks like to me. He's the ultimate host. There are going to be studs and studettes running around everywhere. I think this year they're not going to focus so much on speakers as they are activities.
Nice.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. This year.
And if you're talking about activities, this is a family-oriented event. Now, I will tell you, I probably heard the F-bomb more times there than I had in a long time, but there are kids there, so people try to be conscious of that. But there's going to be a lot of shooting activities. They'll have some jujitsu, some self-defense, how to protect yourself. I hear they're even going to have a concert this year. Have you heard that?
Really? I don't doubt it. I mean, Sid goes all out, like courses on everything you can think of, medical stuff, firearm stuff, long-distance shooting, archery. Of course, I spoke, you spoke, and it's just like a good event, like family. You feel like you're part of a family. Gives away, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. I mean, he gives away a lot of stuff, like a lot of good stuff. I got a gun last time. Multiple people got guns. Like it's just a great American family patriotic event. It's awesome. So I hope I'll be there as well. So we're gonna mix it up. It stays on the calendar at my house.
I tell you what, man, I came out of there so stoked last year, and I had driven up from Orlando to Buford. And I got home, and my wife was like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "You got to listen to what I went through. Just told her everything, and ad nauseum, I'm sure." But I think she's going to come with me this year, so I've got her to tentatively agree to it. But listen, if you're interested in doing something like that, just Google Core Medical Group Military Appreciation Weekend 2025. There's a link on there, and I'm looking at it right now. That you click on Eventbrite, Eventbrite for tickets. You can see there's various combinations that you can do there with a hotel, without a hotel, multiple day, single day, whatever. But also I want to read, this is just a synopsis about what they're, and I just lost it. Here it is. So this is what they're saying about this year. Join the Core Medical Group team for a weekend full of fun and gratitude for our military family. The 2025 Military Appreciation Weekend is a special event where we raise funds to combat and end veteran, law enforcement officer, and first responder suicides. Can you think anything more important? We also come together to honor and celebrate the brave men and women who serve our country. We offer a variety of family-filled events for all ages, for both veterans and civilians. There will be exciting activities, delicious food. The food is,
Yeah, it's awesome.
live music, and much more. Don't miss out on this opportunity to show your support and appreciation, as well as participate in an effort to put an end to the suicide rates from those communities. Now, just before we move on, I want to just touch on that for a second, because I know you're familiar with that, Byron, that the number 22 is associated with our military veterans. Can you tell us what that number represents?
Yeah, so there was a study that went out a few years ago, and it was that roughly 22 veterans are committing suicide every single day. So one every couple of hours, and it's a problem. So that's the short answer of it without me going on a rant.
Yeah, I understand,
that's the
brother.
real war that's going on.
I understand. And we have suicide rates in retired law enforcement as well, but nothing near what the military rate is. It's just, and it just, that's the big reason I got you on here. One, because I think you're a stud, but also I honor that you served our country. But I think we're going to find out a little bit about what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than sitting back and just saying, I can deal with this myself, you figured out a way to deal with it. And that's the whole purpose of having Byron on here with us today, just to tell you about some of the things he's done throughout his life. And if you can't tell, he's got a pretty infectious personality here. It's a pretty positive, can-do kind of guy, which I love.
Thank you. It's an honor, man.
Well, thank you, man. So let's do the Reader's Digest version, because there's so much about your book I want to talk about. Tell us where you grew up, what your family dynamics were, brothers, sisters, you know, people in the military, law enforcement, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so family, born in the Bahamas, grew up in Washington State. I was in the Bahamas till I was about 4 or 5, and then my parents got divorced, and I started kind of doing the custody thing. So I would spend summers in the Bahamas, winters in school in Washington State, polar opposites of everything. But I learned some superpowers down in the Bahamas, man. I could swim. I didn't know black guys, African Americans couldn't swim till I went to, I was in boot camp. No, actually it was when I was in the fleet. And my platoon was like, we're going to watch Rodgers drown today. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I can swim better than all you. I was talking about, we talk crap back and forth, like, you know, no matter what color you are, everyone's getting some back in Marine Corps, and we're all brothers. So, and then they're like, yeah, Rodgers is going to drown. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, dark green Marines can't swim. And I'm like, you kidding me? Like, I was talking about, I grew up swimming and spearfishing. And they're like, they wouldn't believe me. They're like, ah, yeah, right, dude. Then I get to the tank, and all my black friends are drowning. Yep, drowning. And I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You guys are killing me, man. You're making us look bad. Anyways, so, you know, growing up in the Bahamas definitely had its benefits. And then I got 5 sisters, and I was raised primarily by my mom. And so kind of my family dynamics is I had to learn to fight alone at an early age, because I didn't have no brothers, you know what I'm saying? So it was just me and 5 sisters spread out between everywhere I go. And then eventually, you know, played some good football growing up, 6A football out there in Washington State, like top weightlifting program out there, which kind of helped me into the Marine Corps phase, and was really successful with that. And then kind of hit that choice point of, do I try to play ball or do I go to the Marine Corps? And there was a war going on. So there's time to step in.
What part of the Bahamas did you grow up in?
Nassau. So the capital is where I was born, but then of course we travel around. My family's always been into traveling, so we've gone around quite a bit.
Nassau's a tough place. I've been there a few times.
Yeah. You got to stay on the reservation. You start leaving the reservation, it gets a little darker real quick.
True. Did you get any offers to play college ball?
No, I didn't get any offers. I would have had to go hunt for it. I was playing Gig Harbor High School, so it's like a 6A program there, and I qualified for state and played all 4 ways my senior year, so I was doing pretty good. But just, there's a young man's logic here, okay? So I remember I meet one of my buddies, and his dad played for the Chiefs, and I remember and he had like this twitch, kind of like, seemed like he'd been hit a lot, you know, and I remember watching him being like, well, geez, I don't know if I want to go down that route. Like, my man, he's clean, I love him, but golly, he like got banged up. So then I'm like, I know what I'll do. I'll join the Marine Corps, you know, I'm going to go to war, you know. So I don't know what my thinking was. God bless my little self. And I walked into my cafeteria, and I saw the Army guy there, and I was like, hey, and I was like, tell me the truth, man. I was like, I want people to look at me and know I joined the hardest branch. I want it to be hard. I want every day I want it to suck. I want to challenge myself. And I just want to be as legit as possible, just at least at the enlistment level. And if I decide to go up from there, I can. Which one is it? The Marine Corps or the Army? And he looks at me and he's like, you should probably just join the Marine Corps. And I was like, thank you.
Gotcha.
And I
Gotcha,
walked
boss.
in. Yeah, exactly. I was like, thank you. I walked right over there. I joined the Marine Corps and I went off to war.
What was the attraction about? Why did you want hard? I mean, all the branches serve our country, but why did you want the most difficult?
Yeah, my little buddy has figured out how to come into my, hey baby, can you take Judabubs? He's figured out how to unlock the doors. Yeah, he's like
that right there is reality.
Yeah, he's unstoppable, man. He broke the hinges, and now he just comes in whenever he wants. It's my son.
Yeah, go ahead and stop him if you can.
Yeah, you can lock the door if you want. It doesn't matter. We have to build a new door now. Anyways, so
hey, I got to mention to you real quick. I saw a video here. Nick Kumalazos puts out daily things, and he's interviewing his kid. This here's Nick, the big dark haired guy, and his wife's got dark hair, and here's this bright red carrot top kid, it's full of life.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And Nick's asking questions, and the kid's like, did you enjoy vacation at the beach? Yeah, Dad, but you got the truck stop in the sand. I mean, he threw him under the bus immediately. And you got to respond to that.
Yep. Kids.
So I love the kids.
Just truth.
All right, man.
Just pure truth.
Back to Byron's story, man.
Yeah, where was I? I was telling you something.
Why did you want to go to what you consider, what most people consider the hardest military branch?
Yeah, I think it's that will to, that I think most healthy young men have this, and I say that very deliberately, which is a will to just want to be legit. And if I was going to do it, I didn't want to go the easiest route. I wanted to go the hardest route, and I wanted it to matter, and I wanted the honor and respect that came with that. If I was going to put my life on the line, I wanted to be fighting shoulder to shoulder with the best fighters, and all those things were in my mind. Is like, because I was in a little bit of a, and I think this is relevant because a lot of young men are in a little bit of a spot where you're like, how do I find myself to be respectable, right? And in your head, it might be as simple as, how can I be legit? Like, how can I be that thing that we go for? And this is much to say in the transition of going from being a boy or a male into really turning into a man. But that's what I was aiming at. And my father's super masculine, super hardcore dude, successful businessman, one of the most successful businessmen in the Bahamas at the time. He's on like net magazines. He got shot at point blank range with a shotgun, survived it. Like I still might have to shoot Dad if me and him had a problem. Like I still might be like he could still beat me down. You know what I mean? So I still might have. Yeah, I love my dad. He's a savage. I'm glad I came from a savage. But I remember thinking to myself, like, what can I do so that my dad will even respect me, and that I'll be able to respect myself in a way that no one can take away from me as I go through my life. And then I was like, well, Dad ain't been to war, and ain't nobody else been to war. I'm finna go get my stripes, or I'm gonna die trying, because I don't want to be a hollow man when I grow up. And
wow, what year was that?
Paid off. I mean, senior in high school, 2004. Yes, sir.
So that's post 9/11. I'm trying to think where I was in 04. I guess I was in the headquarters.
Well,
at least I was Special Operations Division, but.
Yeah, you were getting it. You were definitely getting it.
Did 9/11, did that have anything to do with your decision?
I also perceived that I was in a kind of like a very important time, because I had the opportunity to go to war, and I just knew that there was a war going on, and as an able-bodied, more fit than most young men guy, like, I bear the responsibility to go do it for everyone who wasn't able to do it. And so I still had a very young, altruistic notion of war and of the way the world works and everything. And I just figured, like, hey, America's in a war. Young men are going to the meat grinder. And like, who am I to not do that? Like, okay, I'll live my life when I get done earning my place amongst the men of this nation. And that's kind of really how I looked at it. And I played a lot of video games. We're gonna be real. You want to talk about the best marketing ever, the best social engineering ever? I watched Cheers of the Sun, and I played a bunch of Call of Duty, and now I'm actually in Call of Duty, which is, you can't make that up. But
no kidding.
Yeah, I'll send you some of the
No,
covers, man. So yeah, Black Ops and one of the other games I show up in
I've
briefly,
got Black Ops.
and the marketing of it.
You know what? Believe it
So
or not, this old man still plays
you
Call
still
of
get
Duty.
down, but I can't come near video games. I can't if I even come near them, I'm just hooked. It's like, and then I'm not doing anything. I love video games, man.
Yeah. Well, it's my reflexes aren't fast enough to keep up with young people, but no, I didn't know that. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, thank you. So God is good, but yeah,
Absolutely.
those are the reasons I did it, and I'm glad I did. Now, I mean, a lot of guys join, they don't get to go to war and use any of that stuff, and then that's a whole nother psychological, almost like I don't want to use the word condition, but it's another type of wrinkle you have to navigate. Was having all that training, having a heart for this, and not being able to do things like that. So it
When
worked
did
out really good for me.
when did you get your citizenship here in the U.S.?
Oh, I was born with dual citizenship. My
Okay.
parents went and had got in a aggressive divorce. So like somewhere in that process, they got flushed out in order for me to
Yeah.
live here and
Yeah.
all that.
And was your dad happy that you joined the Marines?
Ah, my dad dangled me off of a balcony when I told him I was going to join the Marines. So I told you he was an absolute savage, and he's old school. So like all this stuff about not spanking your kids, and God bless him, God bless. My dad's old school. You're not gonna be disrespectful and
Right.
live. My dad comes down to see me for my graduation in high school. I haven't seen my dad in years. I'm super excited. We're in a hotel room. I just graduated. I'm with my boys. We're walking through the lobby of the hotel before we get to the hotel room. And there's the kind of guy my dad is, lifelong martial artist. Boom, goes in, throws a side kick at my buddy. Dang near kicks him. Wait, no. We're walking through the the lobby of this hotel, and throws a side kick at me and my buddy. Almost kicks us over the piano, and is like, "You always got to be ready." That's the lesson. Like, this is my dad, bro. Doing whatever he wants,
I love
and
it.
we're all like on the balcony on the piano, getting up. He's like, "Now come up to my room." We're all coming up to the room, and him and my mom are like, "So what's next?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna join the Marine Corps, and then I'm gonna and that's gonna give me money for college." And my dad's like, long story short, he's like, absolutely not. Now remember, my dad's a successful guy in the Bahamas, businessman, all that. And so my mom's like, "That's great, honey. All right, so pack your bags. You're going to live with your dad." And I'm like, "But I just told you guys I want to join the Marine Corps, and it's going to pay for college." And I was like, "You know what? You guys didn't listen to a single word I said." I got up to walk out, and I blinked, and now I'm like flying through the back of the hotel room. And you don't just walk out when my dad's talking to you. You just can't. You just don't. And
Right.
then I remember seeing the sliding thing to go out on the balcony, and I'm through that, and now I'm hanging halfway off the balcony, and I just remember, he has me by my shirt and he's holding me, and I remember looking back up at him, and I just relaxed and just laid there, and then he's like, "How come you're not scared?" And I said, "Well, because either you're gonna drop me off the balcony, sir, or I'm gonna join the Marine Corps." And he was like,
Yeah.
and he pulled me up.
Maybe you learned something after all.
"Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And he's like, "All right, you're a grown man. I respect your decision." And then he's like, "Just don't die." And I remember saying, "Well, I'll do my best, Father. Pray for me." Then I went, and I can only imagine how he felt. I never realized what I put my family through until my best friend was in Iraq and got blown up. And then I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can't do anything. Like this is insane what they went through thinking about me being over there."
So now, what happens when that young man we just saw on camera there comes to you and says, "Dad, I want to be a Marine"?
Yeah. Well, we're
You gonna hang him?
gonna
You gonna hang him over the balcony?
yeah, yeah. Balcony number 2. No. We're gonna pray about it. I'm gonna do my best to really, really be such a central influence in his life that the empire, by the grace of God, that I build around him, and the man he watches grow up while he's growing up, is someone that he really listens to. And my
I
goal
love
with
it.
my kids is to where I want to, by the grace of God, hopefully we can create something here that's so awesome and starkly different than what they're confronted with out there in the world, that they just look at the world and they look at the kingdom and they go, why would I want to be like this rapper? Like, why would I want to be like this whoever? Like, look at my father, my family. Like, that's winning. So
Yeah.
we'll see how life goes, but that's the goal.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
I'm
And my
with you,
dad
man.
was not in my life, for the record. Dad was in the Bahamas. I was in the U.S. having to figure everything out myself.
Wow.
So that may have been a big factor.
Yeah, I was fortunate that my dad was in my life. I think he might have been your dad's brother. He was 6'4", big man,
Love
strongest. He's the strongest man I've ever met in my life. He was also a Southern Baptist minister.
Let's go.
So we grew up in a very strict household.
Wow.
But you know what? We turned out, my wife, my wife, my sister.
Mhm.
She's the only sibling I have. We had a brother that passed away before I was born. And both of us turned out what we think is successful. Other people might think I think I am an idiot, but I'm not crazy. I got tested.
Got the wheels on it. Still,
Yeah.
life's going in a direction.
Yeah. So, but what it boils down to is when you were with your dad, you knew what was expected of you, didn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you knew the consequences if you didn't live up to those expectations.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that kind of, I don't know, is that like parenting 101? To me, it is.
Yeah, it's super important. It's also how you don't make psychopaths. I have a master in psychology. Man, in our studies, we stumble across a few things, and that whole like double bind, emotional instability, you lose no matter what. That stuff makes people crazy. But this very kind of linear, hey, this is what is expected of you. This is the bar. And I would go so far as to say it's a form of masculine love that the world's missing. It's, hey, here's the bar. Kid does his best effort. Mom's there to comfort you, but dad's here to say, love you, son. But that's not good enough. Then gotta head back in there and figure it out until you come back out here. Because I need you to be at this level for all the reasons I know that you don't. Difference between me and you is I've been here before. I've been where you're at, little buddy. And I know you need to get up here for a reason. And that's our love language, super important. I think a lot of people are missing that in life.
I'm sorry to hear that your dad wasn't in your life regularly. But it seems to be the norm now in our society that fathers are checked out and they leave the moms to handle everything. It's a whole nother show we could do there. So I want to get on into your Marine Corps. So go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, to speak to that briefly, what I would say is because I had such an uber hardcore masculine dad, this is like a mixture between Donald Trump and Tony Montana, I like to say, but he is a Christian, but he's a Christian.
Yeah.
Anyways. And then I'm in this world and I have that in my biology, right? So like I'm at church and mom's like, you should follow Pastor Jeff or go out. And I remember looking at these guys and being like, you seem like a nice guy. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if, I can look up to you. You know what I mean? And so growing up, I had a really tough time in the church because there's a lot of nice guys, but not a lot of men I was really looking for. This may have been partially what drove me towards the Marine Corps in a way, is knowing that I was a warrior at a young age and being like, where is there a place for warriors and having the body of Christ? How does that even work? And God's always given me a mission around that. But, at a young age, I had to reconcile the fact that the Holy Spirit was going to be most of my guide and most of who was going to be there for me. And the Spirit of Christ was going to be who was going to guide me, because there just wasn't anyone else there. And so I could either seek to build my identity in people around me who thank God I had enough wisdom to know that like these people, I shouldn't trust in them. I shouldn't go give into the gangs and all the different things. I just knew that God was going to basically be my father. And so I looked to him when I didn't have money for lunch. When I was like, Father, how am I going to eat? And he kept me going through these little things in life that would continue bringing me closer to him and build my faith. And I'd be like, well, Father, how am I going to afford tuition for my school? I want to go to the same school with my friends. And the pastor just kind of randomly came in and paid my tuition. And so I just learned at a young age where my source was, and the masculine figure instability really helped me realize that God's going to be the only one that's going to get me through things anyways. And that's really whose I am. And he's the only person that will never leave me or never forsake me, no matter how dark things get. And this comes in handy quite a bit in the latter parts of my life.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. the fact that you realize that at a young age, that says a lot about your personality right there, where your mindset was.
So that's such a gift, you know.
It is. It really is. And the maturity level to even be able to think like that. I got to tell you, my wife will tell you now, I don't think I've matured yet.
We're still warming up. Well, I had like a quasi-traumatic experience at a very young age where I heard God's voice and saved my family's life. There was an assassination attempt. And, I for whatever reason, the Holy Spirit said, go sleep in your dad's room. And I heard this almost like a voice. And this isn't like a Bible story. I'm a human. I argued with him. I was like, I don't want to go sleep in my dad's room. When you're 4, everything's real. So I actually sat there and argued, and Holy Spirit was just like, go sleep in your dad's room, and wouldn't let me go to bed. And I remember being like, okay, well, if you're not going to let me go to sleep, fine. And long story short, then he gives me the wisdom to get my big sister off the couch, because I was like, well, if you're supposed to know everything, I can't get my sister off the couch. She's bigger than me. She's going to beat me up. And he tells me what to do. I steal her blankets. She gets cold. She runs in the room. Long story short, I take her, myself, lock us in my dad's room, go to sleep. A few hours later, I wake up. My dad had started the first private security, kind of like SWAT team, quick response team for private security. He had the largest private security company in the Bahamas at the time. So where the other cops, you could bargain with them, these guys weren't working that way. So he was just disrupting a lot of crime in the Bahamas. So later on that night, I wake up to someone trying to pick the lock right in front of my little 4-year-old, 5-year-old face. The only reason I'm in that room is because the Spirit of the Lord in a voice told me to go in the room and lock myself in that room with my sister. I'm watching this lock being picked right in front of me because I'm standing up, and that's how tall I am. I'm frozen. And I eventually get myself to move. I go wake my dad up. He gets a shotgun. He racks around. You hear a group of about 6 guys run through the living room. You hear the sliding glass door shut behind him. We have it on camera. These guys broke in to assassinate him. This is the Bahamas shanty town. They'll clean your house out in 8 minutes, maybe tops, okay? Nothing stolen, nothing missing. Me and my sister would have been sleeping on the couch. So from there on, everything's been from there on, I've just been blessed to have these experiences, and God hasn't been far away from me. And so that kind of set me on a course of realizing that there's more than just a physical life. And if I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be, I got to figure that out.
There's nothing like the sound of a round being jacked into a shotgun, is it? To get everybody's attention.
Universal. No matter what language you speak, you understand. It's great.
Absolutely, man. It saved my life more than once when I was a uniform cop.
I believe it.
All right, so you go into the Marine Corps in 2004, and boot camp. What's your specialty when you come out?
So Marine Corps, 0351, anti-tank assaultman. So I'm demolitions and handheld rocket systems. We focus on breaching, mechanical breaching, explosive breaching. Memorize 52 tanks on our way into the fleet. Shoot the small. And blow stuff up, and then run around with the infantry, right? So we got rifle. I also have a rifle, a rocket launcher, satchel C4, can use Bangalore torpedoes and all that good stuff.
I love it.
That was awesome.
Do you remember how you refer to yourself in the book for civilians who don't know what a 0351 is?
0351, the little green army man with the yeah, the little green army man with the flamethrower or the bazooka. That's basically it. That was me.
And that's one of the notes I put on my notes because I thought it was hilarious to read that.
Yeah.
You eventually became a corporal and a squad leader, right?
Yes, sir.
And you went to Iraq how many times? Now that's a drink of water there.
Yeah, get that gallon a day. So I was in Iraq twice, 2 deployments over there.
Did you have any family members in the military?
Negative.
So you're the first.
Yeah, I'm the first to hop in. That's interesting.
Well, So 2 tours in Iraq, and I know that you were involved in some IED explosions. How many of those were there? And can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, I was in a total of 5 blasts, and
Unbelievable.
well, and that's the thing about it. Like, it sounds like even when I say it, I'm like, golly. But like in that war, in my peer group, it's just not even that crazy. Like, it's a higher number, but it's like a B minus. I had a guy in my platoon, Foster, was in 10 blasts.
Oh my
I
gosh.
watched Foster get launched. I was literally setting security for him. He was coming over a hill in a truck. Boom, he disappears. I have time to put the ladder down, come running out the back of a truck, running towards the explosion with my rifle up, and all of a sudden I hear wham. And the entire time I was in the air,
Oh my
Foster
gosh.
hits the ground, and then I actually turn and I present my rifle to him because I didn't know if it was a near ambush because of where he landed. And I'm like, oh, it's Foster. Somehow he had his rifle in his hand and he was using it as a cane to stand up. Anyways, so
Oh my goodness.
long story short, my platoon, guys in my platoon, 5, 4, 3, 6, 10. That war was a war of getting blown up. And the last one for me was the most significant one. That's where I had that out of body experience. Ask God
Can you
for a
tell us
chance
all
to come
about that?
back. Oh yeah, man. So this is
What
my
part of
testimony.
Iraq are you in?
I
If you
am
remember.
in the around Barwana, Haditha Barwana area. And this is after the initial push. Actually, this is my second deployment. So we're around like the arm of the Euphrates River. And that's really all they told us while we were there. First deployment was Haditha. Some of you guys may have seen that movie, The Battle of Haditha, all that stuff. That was us pushing through and clearing all that. But yeah, I'm on a patrol in a vehicle, borne patrol. I'm in a mobile assault platoon, right? So weapons platoon gets separated into 2 halves. We're the guys, if there's a fight, we have the machine guns, the rocket launchers, the demo, the mortars, handheld mortars. They separated us into 2 sections, and they made us 2 mobile assault platoons. So if there's a fight, we go to the fight and we end the fight. Roll up, machine gunners, rocket launchers. All right, next. So I'm on the road, mind my business, singing a song in my head. And I remember someone said something along the lines of like, hey, be careful. I was kind of looking over the edge, and I was really upset about something that was going on back home. And they were like, you might not want to look over the edge like that. Like, something might happen today. And I was like, I don't care if something happens. I'm going to handle business. And I was just to give you the understanding of the mentality that you're in when you're in war. That's a whole nother conversation. But I didn't even feel it. I just all of a sudden was in a dark room. Like, if I think really hard, I can maybe imagine, I can maybe feel like I feel some pressure that went through my body. The last thing my buddy sitting right across from me said he saw was me folded up on the ceiling with my feet up by my head and this look of surprise on my face. And I was just in my mind. One minute I was here, and the next minute I was just in a dark room. And I was okay. Like, I wasn't upset. I was so just fine. And I was so not bothered that that's what got my attention. That I was just like, why am I so content right now? And it was just utter darkness all around me. And I remember that I was able to recall what I was doing and what I was experiencing on Earth. And I remember kind of being like, how did I get here? What's going on? What were my last thoughts? And then I started to remember, and I saw my words. And they kind of like a green cursor. And I was like, why is this water cooler? My exact thoughts were, why is this water cooler trying to come up my butt, basically? Like, because that's where I felt all the pressure coming up. I was sitting on a water cooler in the back of a 7-ton, and I had just been hit directly with 60 some pounds of homemade explosives that had just absolutely kind of obliterated me. Not completely, but had passed through my body. And then I started to remember, and I was on patrol, and I was still okay. I wasn't upset yet. And I was like, oh yeah, I was in Iraq. And then all of a sudden I started to perceive the fact that, oh my gosh, I was in an explosion. I was in Iraq. I'm dead. I have to be dead. Like, I must have got hit by an IED. And then the deepest sorrow I'd ever experienced in my entire life exploded from the inside of me. And I started to like just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm like, I'm still just a kid and my life is over. I never lived deliberately. I had no idea what that was. And it was almost like a panic, like it's over. And I never really, ever really except understood the miracle of 50, 60 trillion cells make up a human body. And we're here doing this magical thing on a planet that's supported by trillions of systems working synergistically so we can breathe with our bodies doing a million miracles right now that we're not aware of. And no one knows the point. And I was in all that and I didn't really even perceive it and live like, and so I'm like going through this honestly almost like a spiritual death due to my lack of awareness. And then I start to see my family members and I start to see like my mom and I'm like, mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I failed. And I'm like seeing my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm so sorry I failed you. I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq. I died. I'm sorry. And I see my dad and I'm like, Dad. And Dad was really hard because remember he told me don't die. And I said, pray for me. And I started and I was like, Dad, I'm so sorry I failed you. And then I finally get to my grandma, and my grandma, old Cherokee woman, and she, God bless her, she grandma, and she always used, and it's just like a touched by an angel story, but it just is. Like, I wish it was cooler. I wish I did something more cool, but I didn't. I did what mattered. And
Yeah.
I heard my grandma, and she was like, Byron, if anything's ever stronger than you just say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. By the third time, it'll go away. And so I started to just be like, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And then my buddy, they started to be able to hear me. So they still make fun of me to this day. I'm in the undercarriage of a truck in a blast hole, like by the axle ish. So I'm like down in this truck, and my boys are like, we heard you down there, and you were just starting to go Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I remember, being like, Father, I'm sorry. I may never be all you called me to be, and I may never, I may never get to where you want me to get to. But I promise, if you send me back, I promise you, I will go as hard as I can at life. I'll do the best I can to get as far as you want me to. And I said the most earnest prayer I've ever said in my life. And all of a sudden, I was back in my body. And when I was in my body, I remember not being able to move. And I remember being like, Father, I can't do this without my body. I need you to either take me or I need my body back. And I remember my dad told me about when he got blown up and hit by 60 some pounds and whole weight exploded. I mean, when he got shot, I was like, Dad, how did you not die? You got shot. You're a kid. You think someone gets shot and it's like they get shot in the pinky and they're dead,
Yeah.
And he was like, son, and he's this hard dude. He's like, son, people die when they give up. I never gave up. I had you to fight for. I had your mom to fight for. He's like, I fought like hell. And he was declared dead multiple times on the table while they're trying to figure him out, right? Cut out like 60% of his intestines now. Anyways. So he's like, and I fought like hell. People die when they give up. They go to sleep and I wasn't going to sleep. And I remember, and I just remember seeing that and remembering all that. And I prayed to have my body back, and I felt this powering up happen, like when you hear an Abrams tank or aircraft turn on that, and this holy anger came over me that was, I am not gonna die. And I remember it smelling the smoke from like small fires and stuff that were starting in the vehicle from us getting hit, and I just remember being like, I'm not gonna die here. So I popped up. I saw the back of the 7-ton ladder was kind of like jarred shut. Kicked that out, and I remember with my rifle running to jump off the back, and it's like 7 feet up. It's not like a small thing. You got full kit on. You're not really trying to do that. And then I black out, and my boys are like, bro, what'd I do? What happened? They're like, homie, you woke up, you jumped up, you ran and jumped 15 feet out the back of the truck, and then you sprinted away, and apparently I realized what I'm doing, and I'm 35 feet away on my knees setting security for myself and a bunch of reeds looking at the village that we would eventually assault. And that's when I start yelling at my guys like, get out, let's go. And we assault and start doing Marine stuff. So
you had no injuries?
yeah, I had a class 5 concussion, I think it was, and a fractured elbow. I technically rate a Purple Heart from it, but I haven't chased it down. They lost it. Now I got to go get testimonies from all the boys and all that, which I can do. I just been busy.
Oh my goodness.
I should do it though. Yeah, God is good. So I don't know how we got onto that. We were talking about explosions.
I asked you, I wanted to know about that. Now, did that leave you with any lasting effects, that injury?
I definitely felt like the side effects of having a concussion, and I had my arm in a splint for a few days. I never left combat front lines. Unfortunately, it did result in me not being able to do our last mission. I had to fly out because I had had too many blasts. They were like, who in the battalion's gotten blown up enough times to where we can't afford to let them get hit again? I was one of the guys, so that broke my heart. But overall, I've always had short-term memory kind of thing, struggle, and elbow's been good ever since, and I just have done a lot to rehab my mind in terms of learning, the type of learning, styles of learning, supplements, very diligent to rehearse my mind, rehash and heal my mind. And the last time we did a scan on my mind, they said that you're actually extremely strong and everything looks very integrated.
So there's not an empty, like up here, I hear water sloshing around a lot of times.
Right. Hey, I was a Marine. I chose to be a Marine, so that says something.
Did you suffer any what we would consider PTSD from your injuries or coming out, especially leaving your buddies behind? Because I know it's a very close personal thing amongst anybody in a high risk occupation.
Yeah, man. So I did my little dance with PTSD. So when I got out, when I would get back from combat, I'd be angry. So there would be nights where I was just like sitting there, and this was the short-term acute PTSD where I would just be upset. And I remember being like, okay, I'm gonna go get a drink. And obviously I wasn't old enough to drink yet. But apparently I was old enough to get a sex change and go to war. But anyways, gotta love that. So if it makes them money, you can do it. Anyway, so I remember hitting my buddy up and being like, yo, bro, let's go get some alcohol. So every night when I got back from combat for 30 days, I drank a fifth of vodka by myself in my little hooch. And this is back when we had squad bays. So everybody was in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad thing. Probably mostly good thing. And then around the 30th day, almost to the dot, every time we'd be out for a run or something like that. And I remember we'd be out for a run and my kidneys and liver and stuff would start hurting. And I'd be like, I'm serious. I would sit down and drink a fifth of vodka every night.
I believe you. I read it in your
book. And eventually gotten a couple problems, like a couple things happened in the squad bay where guys were like, are you all right, Rogers? And I'm like, I'm good, man. And they were like, okay, all right. I remember we had one guy that tried to go AWOL and ditch us before going to combat. He was walking through the squad bay one night, and I just snatched him up by his throat and choked him. And he was like, ah. And I remember, oh man. Anyways, God bless him. But overall, we made it. Marine Corps squad bay, it's close to juvenile hall. It's like it's in there, but it's government sanctioned. So and then eventually I would just start to feel pain and I would stop and I'd be like, dude, quit or die, get over it. You drink only on the weekends. You're a warrior. Just stop. And I would just shut it down. Fortunately, my masculinity and the grace of God was strong enough. But then with the aspect of PTSD that was super malignant and dangerous was when I got out, and I got out and I had to deal with the break from the Marine Corps, and I had to deal with the new identity, the transition into a new identity. And they say that sometimes PTSD is just not ever realizing that you're never going to be that, like, forgive me, but that badass again. You know what I mean? Like that is part of it. It's this death of this identity that you've created over the course of 4 years that you're super proud of. You're 21 and perfect years old, and you've fought grown men since you were 18, and you've done all these awesome things, and you're living life at 200 miles an hour, and now you're like a Lamborghini forced to drive in a school zone for the rest of your life, man. Like, you're sitting here with all these dad bod guys trying to be normal. Like, it's just not it's a big jump. So
Oh, yeah.
if you don't
Yeah.
have the right mechanisms in place. And so for me, I got into drugs, partying. Now, mind you, I'm still a Marine, so I'm highly functional. There was no losery, sit on the couch crash phase. That probably would have killed my soul. So I'm highly functional, flying around the world, protecting people at some of the highest levels, just doing a lot of recreational drugs when I'm off work. And I'm still showing up and I'm hammering. And that was my version of PTSD, was being addicted to dopamine and addicted to adrenaline and moving fast. And
Yep.
God moved me through that.
Yep. Lots of demons in there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, man. It's dark down there, but it's good. It's good for
And
you.
when you came out of the Marine Corps, is it because your enlistment time was up, or because of your injuries, or why did you leave the Marines?
I honestly left I chose to leave the Marines because I saw the direction it was going in, which really worried me, because I just couldn't stay part of something that asked me to really go fight real humans and outperform real humans in violent combat that killed men better than me right in front of me. But that wouldn't let me train these men to standard or be masculine with them, right? So mandates started to come down after my second deployment, where they were like, you need to be like, you can't cuss in front of the Marines and you can't use tobacco products. This was starting to happen. And one Marine was getting like trained, man, broke off the way you need to get broken off when you're going to war, where there's no feelings that, like, you're going to war. This isn't like a kickball team. This is not a game at all. And I remember one of these Marines was getting disciplined and he went and complained to his first sergeant. And then a bunch of us got in trouble. I didn't get in trouble for this one, but I got in trouble for other stuff. And I remember just being like, I cannot go to war with this. There's no way that I'm going to put my life on the line, or I'm going to let these kids put their lives on the line, having zero understanding of war. And when I got in, I arrived at 3-1 Lima Company Weapons Platoon right after the boys got back from Fallujah. They were homicidal maniacs. I mean, the guy who I came in with, they broke him within 2 weeks and he just got processed out of the Marine Corps. And these guys were absolute savages. And it is what kept me alive and made me perform at a very high level. When I went to war, it made war so much easier and so much more understandable. It's what you need as a man going to war. And so when they started to get in there and start adjusting how we did training because of feelings and stuff, I was like, I'm out. And for those reasons, I'm out.
And you'll be on Shark Tank next week.
Yeah, I was like, now y'all can do that to somebody else. God bless you.
I understand. Listen, we've been going a little over an hour now, so this is so good. There's so much more we're going to talk about on our next episode. Hang in there with me, and for all our listeners, thank you very much. This is the end of episode 1 with Byron Rogers. He will be back tomorrow with episode 2, where we're going to get further into what he did after the Marine Corps and how he's become one of the most successful entrepreneurs I think I've ever met in my life. Wow. So stay tuned. Come on back and join us. You know what you're coming back to, the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the game of crimes. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Hey, players, that's the end of part 1. Part 2 comes out, as always, on Tuesday. In the meantime, just a reminder that Game of Crimes is now posting interview videos on YouTube. You can find those at Game of Crimes Podcast. Our website is gameofcrimespodcast.com, where you'll find all our episodes, our guests, book lists, merchandise, and more. And for more content, join us on patreon.com/gameofcrimes. I have several monthly episodes that range from silly to serious, so come on over and join the fun. In the meantime, everyone stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow for part 2.